All right, so next part of the lesson, we're still doing the same thing. So we're going to write the equation from our picture, and then we also need to state the domain and range. All right, so when we look at this, to write our equation, we need h, k, and the radius. So h and k is already given to us. So the -3 is our h, and the 1 is the k value. Okay. So right now, for my equation, I know that we are going to have x plus 3 squared plus, and then y minus 1 squared equals. So now we just have to find the radius. So the radius is the distance from the center to the outside of the circle. So we can either use the distance formula, or if we want, we can just make our own right triangle if we don't remember what the distance formula is. And then we would use Pythagorean Theorem to find this length. So this would have a length of 2. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the hypotenuse, so this would be our right angle, so that's our C. Then I'm going to actually, so this is our R, so I'm going to use R squared. So R squared equals 2 squared plus 5 squared. And then we would just simplify that. So R squared equals 4 plus 25. So that will give us 29. Okay. Now our equation calls for R squared, so we don't actually need to take the square root of that right now. So this will be 29. So that is our equation. And then we need to state domain and range as well. Okay. So if we are thinking about our domain, that's our x value, so this way. So what we need to figure out then is this point and this point for the x values. And to do that, we would just take whatever our center is and we would add the radius. So I'm going to switch colors here. Okay, so again, we're looking at figuring out this distance right here because this is our x values. Okay, so we know that this distance is r. So let's see here. So r is the square root of 29. Okay, so to get this point right here, and again, we only care about the x value at that point, we would take the x value of our center, so -3, and we would add the radius of our circle. So plus the square root of 29, and then the y value would still have to be 1 at that point. And then if we go the other way, so again, this is a distance of r to the outside of the circle, which we know is the square root of 29. So this time we would take the x value and we would subtract the radius to get this point. So it's going to be -3 minus the square root of 29. And then our y value would still be 1. Okay. So for domain then, it is going to be between -3 minus the square root of 29 and -3 plus the square root of 29. So whatever that number happens, there should be a bracket. So whatever that number happens to be. Okay. So range then, again, let's see if I can try to use a different color here. So range is our y value, so that's this way. Okay, so we care about this point and this point. Okay. So if we let's start with the smaller y. So again, this distance we know is the radius, which is the square root of 29. So this time to get this, we would take our y value and we would subtract 29. So I'm just going to write that right away. So we would have 1 minus the square root of 29. And then to get this one, we would take our y value and add our radius again. Okay, so it's going to be 1 plus the square root of 29. Okay. So again, the equation, the domain and range, is all part of our answer for this problem. And we're going to do the same thing on the next example. Okay, so h and k, that's just 0, 0. So for this problem, right now we know that the equation is going to be x squared plus y squared equals, and then we have to find the radius squared. Okay. So again, to do that, we're just finding this distance right here. So this is our r. And again, I'm just going to make my own little right triangle here. So this is 1, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for this problem, r squared equals 1 squared plus 5 squared. So r squared will be, so this would be 1 plus 25, so 26. Okay, so that's going to go here for the equation. And then we also need to figure out domain and range. Okay, so again, I'm going to switch color pens here. So if we start with the domain, so again, that's this direction. So we need to figure out this point and this point. So to do that, again, this is our radius. So the radius is going to be the square root of 26. Okay, so this is the square root of 26, and this is the square root of 26. So for our distance, so here we're adding it, and since we're adding it to 0, this would just be at positive square root of 26. And then on this side, we would subtract it to get negative square root of 26. So our x values are going from negative square root of 26 to positive square root of 26. And then same thing, so this is the square root of 26, and this one. So if we start with this point, we would subtract it from 0. So the range is also going to be from negative square root of 26 to, and again, we would add it to get to this point, so positive square root of 26. So again, the equation and the domain and range is our answer. Okay, so next problem. So same thing, so we're still coming up with our equation. So this time it's giving us a diameter with endpoints. So 3, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then we would have 1, 5, so 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So if this is a diameter, okay, so I'm just going to draw it. So our circle is going to go through those points somehow. So we need to find the center before we do anything else. So to find the center, it has to be in the middle of this line. So what we can do is we can just find the midpoint. So we're going over 1, 2 spaces. Okay. So that means my midpoint has to be somewhere on this line. And then if we go up, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to make a little triangle here. So this was 2, and this is, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we would just go half of 2 and then half of 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. So here's my center. So the center for this is at 2, 1. So that means right now if we're writing an equation, it's going to be at x squared minus, not x squared, x minus 2 quantity squared plus y minus 1 quantity squared. And then we need to figure out the radius. So that means that our radius is this distance right here. So let me grab a different color pen. So now we're just finding that distance. So again, I'm just going to use the Pythagorean Theorem. So this is 1. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is our radius. So r squared equals 1 squared plus 4 squared. So 1 plus 16 is going to give us 17. So this will be 17 for this part. And then if we are trying to find domain and range from this, okay, so again, domain is this way. So we know that we have to go the square root of 17 in all directions. So mostly we care about it this way. So let me switch colors one more time here. So this direction, I'm going the square root of 17 from the center. This way I'm going, again, the square root of 17. So I don't know exactly how much that is, but I do know that I'm going to add and subtract that from my center point. So here's the center. So this one we would take 2 minus the square root of 17. Okay, so 2 minus square root of 17. And then to get this side, we would take 2 plus the square root of 17. And then for the range, so again, that's this direction. So that distance has to be the square root of 17 again. So if we're going down, we would subtract. And we're subtracting the y value this time. So it's going to be 1 minus the square root of 17. And then when we go up, we are adding. So 1 plus the square root of 17. And that's going to give us domain and range for that problem. So again, all of this is our answer. So the equation plus domain and range.